Okay, so it was seen straight out of the monument in front of me, believe it or not. The name was, everybody, it was. It sounded like a woman that seen straight out.
Second, all in favor? Okay, we'll continue with the meetings.
I say no.
We have two presentations. The first one is Barton and Judas, and it'll be Zach and Josh, and I think they got stuff, they do have stuff on the walls, so everybody, it's update on the building feasibility study, so go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Zach Comstock. I'm a project architect at Barton & Judas. With me is Josh Conley, he's another project architect with our firm. So we just wanted to kind of come in and kind of update everybody on where we are with the feasibility report. If we can click to the next slide. So the county had put out an RFP. We asked them to, and asked us to take a look at the county office building on this building here, as well as some other buildings that the county currently owns. Kind of just go quickly through the presentation outline. I'll just kind of provide an introduction on what we actually did. First thing we did was look at the existing conditions and provide an assessment and evaluation of this building. Next thing we did was actually assess other buildings that the county currently owns. Next step was to basically put a space program together and met with the different departments that could potentially be relocated or put in the building or in another scheme in another building. Once we went through that process, we were able to kind of come up with square footage program for the building on what would actually fit in the building. And then based on that, we used basically our assessment report of this building, come up with opinions of probable construction costs for the renovation of this building. And as you see, we'll get further in the presentation, some other options that the county has asked us to look at in terms of either renovating this building or some other ideas. And then I'll kind of just finish up with conclusions and recommendations and then questions and discussions, but feel free if you have questions during the presentation, please interrupt us and Next slide. So as I mentioned, the first thing we did is we actually came out here and looked at this building, the building envelope. We went through all the interior with Gary, looked at all the exterior windows and doors, looked at the roof, exterior facade. One of the major issues out in this building is, I'm sure a lot of you are aware of, is the asbestos spray foam that was put up above the ceilings to basically fire protect the building. Obviously, with any kind of renovation, and I think one of the issues everyone has out here with this building is can't really renovate the building until we get rid of the asbestos. So we've looked at that in terms of how we would do that and the cost involved with that. And then looked at the cost of what it would take to actually do basically an interior gut rehabilitation of this building. One of the kind of the keys in the RFP that the county asked us is to look at accessibility, security, to kind of bring the building up to current building code. As part of this, we looked at HVAC plumbing. We have mechanical engineers on staff as well as electric engineers. We went through the building with Gary and I and one of the other architects. Basically, we looked at the HVAC and what needed to be replaced at the chiller and cooling towers on the building, water heaters and what needed to be replaced, as well as the sprinkler system throughout the building. Electrical, we went through and looked at all the lighting, obviously the emergency generators, the main switch gear, and provided basically an assessment of the current electrical situation, receptacles and lighting. Next slide.
When you say, excuse me, when you say bringing the building up to code, so we're not in code?
There's some components of this building that aren't to current code. So this building's grandfathered in because, you know, it was built under a different code. Anytime you do renovations to a building, basically in the building code, different alteration levels kick in, and you have to bring certain components of the building up to current code. Obviously, when this building was built in the 60s, code was a lot different than it is now. So that's what we kind of looked at, what it would take as part of the renovation process to actually bring the building up to current code.
Jim?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Will this assessment talk about renovations occupied versus renovations unoccupied and what the temporary costs would be if we had to temporarily relocate?
So we looked at that kind of very generally. We did come up with some ideas on how we could actually phase the project in and be able to actually construct while, you know, people get moved around. One of the options I'll talk about is excuse me, we're calling a hybrid option, which would be to put in a small addition on the building that we could actually use as swing space during construction. So that's one of the options we, excuse me.
Thank you.
Came up with on that. As I mentioned, we looked at a number of buildings that the county had asked us to look at just to see the departments that in those buildings. We did look at the highway department, the weights and measures office. We went out and toured the mental health facility, looked at some of the issues out there in terms of the roof icing, as well as the parking issues that I think are ongoing out of that facility. We looked at the Hardenberg building. There's a few rooftop issues, some roof replacement that's needed in that building. That's where the DA's office is, as well as public health. We took a look at the historic post office, which is a very gorgeous building. But obviously it's an older building. It's got some issues. That's where the board of elections and the sheriff's civil department is located. So, we did take a tour of the Boyle Center. Obviously the county doesn't own that, but the Office of Aging is leasing space in there currently. And while we were touring the building, they're actually getting more space in there now. So we did take a look at what, you know, different facilities they have. We took a tour of the courthouse. We weren't really engaged to actually look at the courthouse itself, but more the annex space in the back, where assigned counsel, stop DWI, and the Department of Probation is located. The final building we looked at is the old jail building, where the historian, records management center is, the buildings and ground system space. Slide.
Chair.
Yes. Yeah, Mark.
Thank you, sir. I heard you mention parking, and obviously most of us here know that this building has a parking issue. And I heard you say something about constructing a temporary building. Is that attached to this building? Is it going to be in the parking lot? And
I'll get into that in a little more detail. We're looking at an addition that would be partially in this parking lot and to the west of the building. The exact size at this point is not really known. We're just trying to figure out what makes sense on site. I think a combination of that and probably some inefficiencies in the current parking layout could be improved upon to actually increase parking a little bit. We do know you have a parking issue out here. It is a concern and something I kind of got to grapple with. We have some thoughts and ideas on that. We'll kind of talk about it a little bit.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So as I mentioned, we looked at 27 departments, basically put us, what we call space program analysis together, which is basically looking at what your existing conditions are and how much space you have. Then we looked at, after we met with everybody in each department, we basically have forms that we send to each department and then they fill them out. And then we look at basically what they're looking for proposed and kind of compare that to existing. So then we use that proposed space program to actually come up with square footages that would actually either fit in the building or in one of the other options that we presented later in the presentation. Along with that, we've looked at a lot of times there's spaces that can be shared. So we did do kind of an analysis on that in terms of conference rooms, break rooms. You know, kind of currently in the building, there is kind of a mix of conference rooms. Break rooms are kind of distributed unevenly. Some people have break rooms, some do not. So it's looking at those kind of spaces that could be shared, you know, whether they can be shared or not, as well as also looking at adjacencies in the building. It needs to be near each other in the proposed layouts that it works better in terms of the layout of the building for the departments and staff that are working here, as well as the public. So we did kind of an extensive analysis of all this. If you go to the next slide. So based on that, Josh and I put some basically graphs together, basically showing what the existing program is in the building, as well as what the proposed program is. So we can at least get an idea what departments need more space potentially. Obviously, we got to look at this with a grain of salt. You know, people tend to always want more space, but at least gives us a kind of a base point to go from in terms of what's existing, what's proposed. So actually, a lot of the departments, the space program needs actually went down slightly. Some did go up. Some you can see went up considerably if you look at the orange on a couple of them. But obviously, this gives us a jumping off point. We can talk to the county, decide what makes sense for the department, for each department, so that we can kind of make a educated guess in terms of the proposed program to be able to design out a facility that will work for everybody. So based on those overall 27 departments, the existing building is about 83,000 square feet. The 27 departments obviously are spread out, not just in this building. I think there's 19 in this building. Yeah, that's 17 to 19, something like that. So obviously we're looking at more departments and obviously more square footage. So based kind of on our analysis in the building we had, there basically isn't enough room in the building to bring all 27 departments in. So that was kind of the first step, is to look, okay, can we get everybody in here? It doesn't appear we can. So basically we looked at what actually is existing in the building now. And then we kind of analyzed what we potentially could get in here, which is the last bar graph there, which is basically the proposed conditions for the building. So based on kind of all the analysis we did in terms of the assessment of the building, we went through the whole building. We put square footage costs together based on what we would see to actually renovate the existing county office building. We've got a breakdown up there. But basically, we're looking at about 25 million to renovate this building as is. So we could get, departments back in here, but it would be more efficient. We could, replace all the mechanicals, get rid of the asbestos, actually create spaces that would work better, be more efficient for staff, as well as set it up better for the public coming into the building. And this includes, improving on ADA compliance in the building, bringing the building up to code, as well as security concerns within the building itself.
That's a good question. Are you talking about getting all 27 departments in this renovated space?
So I'll get to that. So we based on the amount of square footage, we wouldn't be able to get all 27 in. So we've come up with some design schemes I'll talk about further in the presentation, basically what we think is the best option and recommendation to actually improve the building, get as many people in here as you can, as well as maybe some other options out that might work for you guys, possibly in the future for other departments. Next slide. So the three options, two of them, I think the RFP tasked us to look at was basically looking at a new office building to be able to get all 27 county departments that we're looking at into a new building facility, whether in the city or outside the city, and basically come up with a cost on what that would cost. So we looked at a number of properties that could potentially work as part of this. And we basically put a cost together square footage wise based on the square footage we came up with to get all 27 departments into a new building. So when we come up with that, we're at 70 million for a new building somewhere in the county to get all 27 departments in there. The second scheme we were asked to look at was basically renovation of an existing larger facility. So the county could buy an existing building, one that would, fit the needs more of, the amount of departments we're looking to get in there, renovate it, and then actually move everybody into that building. So both those schemes, there's potential for obviously selling of your existing buildings and being able to use some of that money to offset the costs. But obviously, as you can see, renovating the existing facility is obviously a little bit cheaper than a brand new facility, but it's still pretty considerable, 55 million. Kind of the final scheme, and we've refined it with input from the county at this point. And it's the kind of the scheme that we kind of came up with at BNL as part of our suggestions and recommendations, which is basically what we're calling a hybrid renovation. So as I was discussing earlier, we've got this existing building. Obviously, we've got to construct this. And construction obviously takes some logistics to be able to do. I think moving everybody out of this building while construction happening is expensive because then you got to get into another building and you've got fees and costs for running other space. So what we looked at as hybrid option was actually to be able to build an addition kind of on the west and south side of the building. What this would enable us to do is actually move, actually build that first, get some of the departments moved into it, and then actually be able to renovate each floor kind of, we'd have to figure out a phasing for it, but whatever made sense to actually be able to renovate the building while everyone's still in it. We think in terms of the cost, this is probably the most economical. When we first looked at it, it was trying to get all 27 departments in here. Obviously, that's a lot of square footage based on what we had existing and what we'd have to propose for an addition. So it was, slightly under the original cost of a large existing facility to renovate at 50 million. So based on that and input from the county, we kind of came up with what we're calling a refined hybrid renovation. Basically, this building has 83,000 square feet, 27 departments. We basically asked the county, okay, what doesn't make sense that would actually not have to come into the county building, but still get enough space in the county building to get, most of the departments. And after discussions going back and forth, one of the things we looked at is, and one of the things that a lot of the staff during the department things interviews came up with is that anybody involved with the courts has to be downtown. I know that was a concern across the board when I met at interviews with different departments. So obviously your probation, your attorneys, your different departments that work a lot in the courthouses really need, access to the courthouses. So our first thought is that those departments actually could be moved where they are. The attorney's office is in the Hardenberg building. I know that was renovated recently, semi-recently, more than some of the other buildings. So we could leave attorney's offices and some of these other offices where they are now and actually really concentrate on getting kind of the core county departments that actually need to be here. Anything from DSS to the clerk's office. In this building, the ledge, and kind of come up with a hybrid scheme that would work and get most of the people in the building. So what we kind of did is once we looked at that and kind of came up with a scheme, we obviously put pros and cons and came up with some conclusions for each of the schemes. Obviously, there's benefits to being able to renovate this building because you already own it. You already own the building. There's potentially right here in terms of, space you have. I know parking is a concern. I think there's some things you could do in terms of making the site better for the parking layout that would actually improve on the parking. Obviously, I don't think we can solve all the parking issues out here on site, but there's some potential issues. I know there's a parking garage a block or so away that has potential for being able to use for the facility. So for example, new office building option. Obviously, if you get a new building, you get a brand new space, which is great. Have maintenance issues right away, there's a lot of benefits to having a new building. Obviously, some of the issues is, finding properties downtown. One of the things the county tasked us with is to kind of meet with a real estate agent and kind of find out what the current, market is in terms of real estate, commercial real estate downtown and outside. So we kind of did an extensive look at that for the county. Obviously, I'm sure everyone's kind of aware with the current market situation with housing and commercial buildings. It's not the easiest time, and things are pretty expensive. So one of the drawbacks of new buildings, we'd have to find a site, which wouldn't be the easiest thing. There's cost of obviously buying the site. And then, a new building came in at the highest cost in terms of actually having a new county office building. We did look at some different options in terms of the existing building, facility options out there. Obviously, that was a little bit cheaper. And then kind of that final thing was basically coming up with that hybrid scheme to keep the building here. We refined it a little bit in terms of the addition size. And there's some benefits here. Obviously, parking's an issue, but it's a building the county currently owns. This building is actually in fairly good shape considering the windows are fairly old. Windows get old and they have to be replaced. But I think the bones of this building is very good in terms of the building itself. And truthfully, if you tried to build this building anywhere else now, the cost would be astronomical. Next slide. Go ahead. Did you have a question?
I will. I'm going to wait. Go ahead.
So one of the other things the county asked us to look once we kind of came up with this refined hybrid was basically looking at existing, proposed, and potential shared space that we came up with. Because obviously any kind of addition we put on here, we want to obviously maximize the amount of departments we can get in there. And as you notice, we went from 27 to 19, which I think is kind of the core of what the county needs in the building. So we kind of just did an analysis on the actual building in terms of how much shared space we could get out of it to actually get some more square footage in the building. So, based on that analysis and looking at the building, there's about 26,000 square feet that we could potentially have shared program space, conference rooms, break rooms, circulation. If you take even, 2/3 of that, that's some actual square footage. One of the thoughts we had, additional opportunities to get in the buildings, we could actually potentially relocate health department, mental health, and weights and measures into the building. Obviously, we'd have to look at that more kind of in a next step in terms of the schematic design for the building. What we're really trying to do is present, the options to the county so that you can make kind of an educated decision on which direction you want to go in terms of which scheme and option. Excellent.
Are you talking about the mental health, the new building on North
I don't
Street?
know if it's new.
Okay,
There's an addition on that was added to it. Yes.
wait a minute. All right,
Next to the hospital.
yeah, we just built that like a few years ago, right?
I think the original building was, from the 70s. It probably did get renovated.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago.
Pretty sure my mom was on the ledge when they did it.
Right.
It was like.
You don't want to talk about how old you are.
Quite a while ago.
It was like
I left my
2000.
walker in the car.
2010, the new, 2010, the building was built.
So really what we're just kind of suggesting is that there's extra square footage in whatever scheme we came up with here. So you could get some other departments. You did take a look at the mental health facility. I know one of the big concerns out there is parking because there's basically no parking around that building. There is some leaking issues and stuff like that. You're right, it is one of the newer buildings in the stock, obviously. We're just using it as kind of an example that, we could get some more square footage in here based on this scheme, hybrid scheme that we've come up with.
Thank you.
Were you charged with not, I mean, there are some departments, you talk about health department and the district attorney's office and the mental health clinic. Were you charged with trying to not continue to keep any of those operations where they are? And then, I mean, is that kind of what? you were asked
Basically,
to do?
we were tasked to look at all these departments and what the potential is. You know, when we started this, obviously, we didn't know the total number of departments. We didn't know how much square footage until we got in there and we talked to each department head and figured out, you know, exactly what it is. And then kind of became, okay, look, this is how much square footage we need. We don't have this in this
Right.
building. So we got to start making decisions. Yeah, we could go out and build a new building, fit everybody in, but there's this cost implication. We could try to renovate another building that's larger, but there's cost implications for that. And really tried to refine it down to kind of come up with a scheme or suggestion or recommendations on what would actually work in a hybrid option.
And when you say hybrid option, meaning,
So existing building renovation completely, as well as an addition to be able to
Okay.
use during construction. That's kind of the hybrid.
okay,
And I know hybrid can mean a lot of things, you know, you could run it, you know. We like this scheme because you guys own this building, you own this property. When you start to get into other properties and buying space or leasing space to people, you start to get into some unknowns because obviously you don't own the property. So I think that's why, you know, one of the options and pros, I think, for this property is you guys do own it and control it. So we just kind of put a quick configuration together of what, you know, a hybrid option could look with an addition. Basically, as I mentioned, we're looking at the west and the south. You know, obviously we reconfigure the parking lots to be able to make the parking lots work with this addition. This addition kind of does two things, I think. One of the issues in this building, your elevators and stair halls actually don't meet current code. And like I said, it doesn't mean that it doesn't meet code when it's built. But obviously, if you do any kind of extensive renovation, it's basically called alteration level 3, then you got to bring the whole building up to current code. So one of the things this hybrid option does is actually get a stair hall addition with a new elevator bank on the west side of the building to be able to get people up to all the floors. And what's nice about that is it actually gets a stair hall and an elevator on the other side of the building, which makes circulation and how you set up your floors more convenient and actually lay out better and get better circulation. You can go to the next slide. So Josh and I kind of came up with a quick, what a potential addition could look like. We were looking approximately 25,000 square feet. It would be on the basement, first and second floors. And then the remaining floors would just have basically a stair hall, tower, and elevator going up on the west side. This would get swing space on the first floor. And one of the things when we were talking about the county, obviously security is an issue, as well as trying to get people in public into the building. One of the things I think an addition does here is you can get some added lobby space, get some security space in the building, actually be able to probably get DMV and the clerk's office, which I think, you know, a lot of the public comes to on that first floor, as well as one of the thoughts and what we've done in other county buildings is DSS really needs security. What we've come up with other buildings is actually creating a public side of Department of Social Services. Basically, people, public comes in, there's a certain spot where they come in, there's a waiting area, and security right off it. And then staff actually comes to that area to have interviews with the public. That way they're not getting into, you know, office space in the Department of Social Services where. So like I mentioned, we did something similar for Shenango County with a layout in terms of having a waiting area, security, and actually getting this public part of DSS. So one of our thoughts is that this would be on the first floor. Obviously, DS is a fairly large department. I don't even think it fits on one floor currently. This would enable us to actually get it on the first floor, and then you could move the rest of the department up a floor and actually have that floor dedicated to just private staff and DSS. Obviously, as I mentioned, DMV, I think obviously gets a lot of public. Something similar for Shenango County in terms of trying to make their DMV layout more efficient. I still think probably on the first floor makes a lot of sense. That's just kind of a prototypical DMV layout we've done in the past. And as I mentioned, as you go up from the third floor up, it would basically just be a stair hall, additional elevators. We work the circulation and then kind of work, the different departments off that. We did basically when we haven't gotten to schematic design, but we've gone through all the departments and who they need to be adjacent to and basically came up with a adjacent diagram. So we have a fairly good idea where it makes sense for departments to be. So that you can move to the next step of kind of coming up with a schematic design for the building. Next slide. So I did mention one other thing I thought we had in this process, and we've actually done this for Greene County for their courthouse. Because most of the departments that got left out of this hybrid option, we basically looked at one of the things we've done for Greene County is actually put in an annex building. I know you guys currently have an annex building off the back of your courthouse, and then your old jail is right behind it. One of the things we did for Greene County, which I think is working out nicely for them in the design process, is create an annex building off the back of their courts. Then you can get probation, your attorneys, basically become your public safety building. I particularly like the scheme in terms of being able to use a site that you already own. This project was very similar that I'm showing up here. We had an existing jail that we demoed and actually built a building that kind of matched the courthouse in the back and basically houses the attorneys and all the various departments that need offices of the courthouse. So one of our other thoughts was, as a future project, obviously if we can't renovate all the buildings that are in now, is try to consolidate, the remaining departments into a public safety building. Jail site. So I think I've kind of covered everything. I'll turn anything over to questions or anything anybody has comments on, I'll talk about.
Yeah, just Zach, did you tell anybody, maybe I missed it, about the new addition would be 3 floors?
Yes.
Okay.
Dave, Heidi was.
Yes, Heidi.
I wondered when you talked about the increase in parking, do you have an estimate of number of spaces?
I don't, it's
Especially
not,
with the hybrid model bringing mental health here.
we, basically, I'm pretty sure if we got that hybrid with an addition, it wouldn't affect, we'd actually increase the numbers. It's not going to be significant, but we might be able to get 20 more spots on there based on my initial parking at the site. Obviously, that would require some site modifications, stuff like that, but I think there's, parking downtown is a concern. One of the thoughts we had is if to build a building like this, the thing we did at Greene County is we actually built the first floor in the ground as a parking garage and then built 2 stories above it. So it actually solved the parking problems on site, as well as got an annex public safety building right off their courthouse. So it kind of solved both things. And I do know there's a parking garage right on the other side of that I think some staff use. So, obviously that's another project, more cost like that, but I think that's a potential option in terms of keeping kind of, one of the thoughts we had is kind of a campus, almost master plan for you guys, so that, all your staff departments and the people you serve is kind of right in this downtown core. That it gets all the people that need to be here, gets your buildings renovated, and hopefully gets some of the parking issues solved that you have currently.
Questions? Gotta be Jim? Yeah, I didn't see your hand. I'm sorry.
That's okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you very much for all your hard work. You mentioned the 3 floors, basement, first and second. I'm wondering if that's forced, that we have to go underground, or if that's an economic decision because it would be a better cost.
Kind of both. So obviously it would be more cost efficient than to build up and build down. One of the things I know, I've got comments from many of the departments that are located in the basement. In the basement's dark, it's, it was built, kind of like it's basically Russian shelter. So one of the things that enables us to do is actually, and why addition makes sense, I think on the side and the back is, first it avoids a lot of the parking, but the second thing is that we've been able to get some light into that basement floor and make it more space than it is currently. So I think that's kind of solves the problem too. So that's plus it's more cost effective. We can build a basement and build a couple floors above it, cost effective than have this spread out. plus an infection.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm assuming that this addition, you're talking about 3 floors, that's a permanent addition to this building, correct? Thank you.
And we haven't, I'm saying 3 floors, we've kind of done some preliminary legwork in terms of the design of it. It may be 2 floors, it could be smaller. There's lots of, just depending on, the square footage we're trying to get in the building. But that seemed to make sense, about 25,000 square feet worked. And it worked with even, possibly bringing in some other departments. And so that's kind of why we used it as a kind of a base for this.
Thank you, sir.
Jim?
Thank you, Chair. So you mentioned that the building has strong bones. So was there any analysis done, or did you have an opportunity to look at the structure and see about adding 2 floors and maybe that stair tower on the west end going up? Because sometimes it's less expensive to go up than it is to go out.
Yeah, I mean, our structural engineers did look at it. I think there is potential for it. One of the issues in an older building like this, it's kind of like these PMBs we do, especially older ones, is they were done so long ago. It's, really to do a true structural analysis of it is difficult and costly. I think there is potential for going up.
I mean, 2 floors, 13,000 square feet of floor, it's 26,000 square feet. And you save some of your parking in.
No, that's another hybrid option, I think.
Yeah.
Of, being able to do something. I think there'd probably need to be more detailed analysis on the building itself.
Okay.
Like I said, it was built in the early 60s, so. But that's another, I think, viable hybrid option here.
I'm thinking about going up. I know there are some regulations in terms because buildings in the city can't be taller than the prison, so I know that could be a factor. Yeah, it's a zoning issue within our.
And I had that down, but I think they would look at that.
Yeah, and there are
limit
even
to city height buildings in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even there is general zoning issues that affect. I'm
variances.
familiar with that particular thing. And I don't think this is all for the city.
Yeah, there is. Questions? I mean, we got plenty of time before we resolve this, but Zach, what is the next step? Yeah, Zach and Josh.
I mean, basically what we try to do is give you enough information in this report, and there is, we kind of touched on it, but there's a full report on what we actually looked at, get out here. Basically what I see as the next step is if there is an option you want to go with and it makes sense, the next step is to do a schematic design of that particular design. Just so that you can see, okay, how many departments can we get, actually get spaces laid out so we can look at it and then based on that, actually put a set of construction documents together to be able to bid it out.
Jim? And Elaine? Go ahead, Elaine, go ahead.
To Jim's point about going up, in order to do a full evaluation, is that feasible? We'd have to expand the contract that we have.
And for us to look at it, because that
Yes.
wasn't one of our original
Okay.
things that we had. I mean, actually, the hybrid option wasn't even one. We
Right.
just
You just did it.
based on what
I'm
we
sure
saw.
they could do a quick analysis by looking at the old drawings and seeing what the load calculations were and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, we could have our structural engineers look at it.
Just a quick glance to see if it's
Even feasible. Yeah, we could.
Okay, anybody else? Just
have we decided not to look out? One time we were looking at one level story building at some shopping center or
The
something.
mall.
Is that off the table now? Are we?
I don't think anything's off the table until the ledge decides, but
Wasn't sure.
I think what Zach and Jess were saying about some of the departments have to stay here.
Yeah.
Because of the courts, so.
To Jim's, did someone go look at? it?
Yeah, so we,
talked about the mall for a while and
They looked.
so I think I looked at about 15 different properties. that you guys- Obviously, for us to go in there, the problem with malls is they're built in the 80s. Pyramid was notorious for not doing construction the way that they should have. So there's issues in terms of that. But the amount of square footage in that building, I mean, it's probably 3 to 4 times what you need. So obviously you could renovate portions of it. I did have contact with the mall property manager, and the mall is up for sale again, is my understanding. So we did, we didn't do any kind of detailed analysis, but we did look at that in terms of that property as well as the shopping plaza, as well as some industrial buildings, kind of the whole gamut of, even properties, potentially build new on. So we met with real estate agent and went through all that stuff to kind of do a preliminary analysis. We didn't get into depth on any property, but we kind of did that initial look at for this.
Mr. Chairman, why is there a rule that we have to keep departments near the court building?
Well, it's not a law, it's not a rule, it's just a necessity. You can ask our county attorney, they're over there all the time.
Particularly if you had several appearances, with an hour break in between them. Presently, attorneys will come back to the office for that hour. If they have to drive, you won't see that. You'll see them in the attorney's room. Just make it more efficient.
There's other departments, DMV has to use the courts. Jim?
I would just like to ask them, if they looked at, you said you looked at several other buildings. Could you pick your top two for potential?
So there was there's a shopping plaza that probably had square footage. But I believe some of the issues, one of them was for sale, one of them possibly could be negotiated. That's a lot, when we were looking at real estate, there was a lot of that, like we could probably get a hold of one of them, but there might be some negotiation to get the other piece.
Right, but I'm just wondering.
So probably that one was pretty good because it had the square footage, plenty of parking. It was just outside down. It might have even still been in downtown. So that was one of them.
Where was that at?
That's C Street. I can't remember.
Still in the
city.
Going west.
Still in the city.
Yeah.
It's on Genesee Street.
I think it got sold though. I think that there's a U-Haul storage unit there. That's the unit I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I think there was an auto
I think
place.
it's gone.
Oh, the old PNC lot?
Mhm.
Okay.
I think it's gone now.
Your second choice, that one's off the table.
In terms of existing building stock, there wasn't much. I mean,
Okay. Just curious,
probably the mall and
because we're gonna beat ourselves up looking for other buildings if these guys.
real estate. A lot of the stuff we were piecing together, we needed buildings downtown, what we could do with them. Yeah, but to piece them together, it's like, wow, they might be leaving in 10 years, it's kind of right.
This won't be my last question, but if I can ask it, there's a row of apartment buildings right next door to us here. Do we know anything about those?
As far as for sale, you mean, Jim?
Yeah, or the condition, or, I mean, if the building.
There's some attorney's offices in there too. For sale, I have no idea.
Attorneys. But an L-shaped building wouldn't be terrible either. I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, Josh, Zach, thank you so very much, both of you, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from you soon. And we'll certainly keep the ledge informed.
Okay.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Good job. Thank you. Okay, our next presentation will be Mr. Marshall, Joe Marshall.
Chairman,
Yes, I
if I might do a brief about 60% of Cayuga County, this is the reason why I asked Mr. Marshall here, has received the shot to prevent the coronavirus. And to date, we've yet to hear both sides of the story. We've been talked to about have to get the shot. Both perspectives are important in an impartial manner, especially in our government. And in the 70s, our teachers called that propaganda when only one side was shown. Our constituents from every one of our districts has asked why. So I'd like to introduce you to Joe Marshall. He is a small business owner here in Cayuga County. He's also a retired CEO, a former race car owner and race car driver. And among his multitude of accomplishments is he's published author, which includes the book, Last Call for Liberty.
What was the name of it?
Last Call for Liberty, and this is your copy. Thank you.
Mr. Marshall, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. What I've got for you tonight is just information. That's all it is. It's non-confrontational. It's information that I brought just so everybody can have an informed decision on whatever decision you're going to make going forward. I was invited here tonight to try and give some balance to the county's latest COVID-19 information pack, which, given the past couple of years, is a momentum occasion in and of itself. So before I get into the information that I have for you, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity for anybody to do so. Despite some 80% of Americans being vaccinated, a great many of them 3-4 times vaccinated. Got my glasses on. We're being told that yet another wave of COVID-19 infections is on the horizon. Worldometer says the US still leads the world in COVID deaths, and ABC reports there's been a 6-fold or 600% increase in COVID cases in the past year. And despite being only 10% of the population with the highest vaccination rates at 95.7% vaccinated, 83% double vaccinated, those above life expectancy or over 75, as Forbes reports, have accounted for 65% of COVID deaths. Meanwhile, globally, UNICEF has it that only 0.4% of COVID deaths have been younger than 20, with less than 0.02% being under 10. Nevertheless, in May of 21, they started vaccinating 12 to 15-year-olds. Then in October of 21, they authorized vaccinations for 5 to 11-year-olds. By May of 22, pediatric cases had skyrocketed per ABC 11-fold. And a global summit of pediatricians has issued a declaration against these vaccines for children, none of which has prevented their approval for 6-month-olds. And even with Waterford, Ireland, having the highest vaccination rate in one of the most vaccinated countries in the world, with a staggering 99.5% being fully vaccinated, it didn't stop them from having the highest rate of COVID over there. Yet the calls for more and more and more of these vaccinations keeps going out. Whoever put this Cayuga County COVID information pack together appears to be pushing for yet another round of obviously failed compulsory vaccinations, lockdowns and mandates, and blame both that and nearly 250,000 deaths on the 20% left unvaccinated. Is this what Dr. Joya, Dr. Connor, the Cayuga County Health Department, New York State Health Department, and now potentially the Cayuga County Legislature are signing on to with their official declaration? And if so, what totalitarian steps are you prepared to take in order to remedy it? Either way, it needs to be clarified, as the county's latest information pack leads off, and I quote, COVID-19 vaccinations have prevented about 240,000 people in the US from dying and have saved $1.4 trillion in hospitalizations and loss of life at a cost of $40 billion. Unvaccinated people were 15 times more likely to die from COVID-19 than vaccinated up to January 22. And a further 234,000 COVID-19 deaths from June 21 to March 22 might have been prevented if all eligible adults had been vaccinated with at least the primary series, unquote. Well, after considerable investigation, I feel obligated to point out that none of these numbers are derived from data, but rather from wholly speculative, inherently biased mathematical modeling funded by both government and corporate vaccine and vaccine policy narrative stakeholders. Not only that, as I'll explain, they're scientifically illegitimate. Coincidentally, it was in January of 22 that these vaccines took a deep dive into negative efficacy in both infection and death rates. With growing evidence, it was published by the NIH of vaccine-induced immune suppression. As per the UK health security data, efficacy against case rates in the UK fell to negative 300%, while data from Canada put death rates of the double vaccinated there at 3.3 times, and the triple vaccinated to a devastating 5.1 times higher than the unvaccinated. And that's with the unvaccinated being the most populous of the three groups tested, as the chart shows. If you guys all have a copy, I got charts. The only evidence cited by the health department for their numbers is a link to Vox.com, a wholly biased, leftist, progressive media outlet, and the Kaiser Family Foundation, another biased, leftist, progressive organization funded by 1, stakeholders, vaccine stakeholders, Bill Gates and Google; 2, state and local health departments; 3, the Commonwealth Fund; 4, Poynter, which is the owner of PolitiFact and home of the International Fact-Checking Network that runs in partnership with the Kaiser Family Foundation; and Facebook, which is funded by Bill Gates, George Soros, and Google. Fox just references the Commonwealth Fund, where we learned that the numbers were derived from simulated models of a hypothetical and, in their own words, counterfactual world without vaccines. At Commonwealth, we're linked to yet another study done by the same people, supported by, again, the Commonwealth Fund and some Canadian government agencies, including their new Emerging Infectious Disease Modeling Initiative.
Excuse me, is there a time limit for privilege before?
This is not privilege to the floor. This is under presentation. It's been moved.
Oh, the agenda says privilege of the floor, so
It's
this is
been
an
moved.
official presentation to
Yes.
the legislature.
The Canadian government says that the objective of these emerging infectious disease modeling initiatives is to, quote, enhance national capacity of infectious disease modeling that supports public health responses, and, quote, validate a full range of modeling tools required to support decisions making on public health measures and to support response to epidemics and outbreaks, unquote. Centrally planned bias and corruption doesn't come any clearer or more blatant than that. As York University explains, models developed from this new network expects to lead from a One Health perspective. Regarding the Commonwealth Fund, it too is an unabashed leftist organization, critic of what was once America's esteemed individual private healthcare, and is an open advocate for universal socialist healthcare systems, working to advocate health equity and promote anti-racism, gun control, and climate change. And just to clarify, people who don't know or aren't familiar with Marxist doctrine, anti-racism is not being anti-racist. It's an arm of critical theory, critical race theory in particular. None of which, including One Health, have anything to do with the actual health of anybody, but everything to do with the codification of, quote, non-medical social determinants. A revolutionary Marxism critical theory, as defined by the World Health Organization and required by the human rights approach of redistributive social justice into overarching global governance laws implied locally. And just like that, we've been taken from the realms of actual health, science, and medicine straight into the deep end of revolutionary, progressive, collectivist doctrine and postmodern social agency. As bad as the social bias and corruption infiltrating science, medicine, and our own government and public health departments is, it's in the actual science and medicine that not just the content of this particular information pack falls apart, but the whole of the COVID-19 narrative at large. First and foremost, as the world-renowned cardiologist and epidemiologist, Dr. Peter McCulloch, among others, has been shouting from the mountaintops, 95% of all COVID hospitalization and deaths could have been avoided with simple early treatment.
Joe, you got 2 more minutes.
Well, I'm not going to be able to finish that.
You just have to abbreviate it.
Well, I read this. It took me 17 minutes to read it. And did I get 15 minutes?
You got almost 14. You got another minute. I said you had 2 more minutes.
Well, there's no way I'm going to be able to finish this and that.
Well, try what you want.
Is there a summary? Well, in fact, the comparative study, there's all right. As far as the vaccine versus natural immunity and COVID-19 being worse than for the unvaccinated, for starters, there's 150 scientific studies affirming naturally acquired immunity to COVID-19. Posted at the Brownstone Institute, where there's another 51 scientific studies rebuking vaccine mandates, in addition to another 150 scientific studies on masks' ineffectiveness and harms. How could mask mandates have possibly worked to deter the spread of the virus when it's been found that, as per the Lancet, that even with 3 layers of surgical masks and health workers were still getting COVID through their eyes? Despite the bold claims of vaccine superiority, I've never heard of natural immunity waning after just a few short weeks, or seen a list of adverse events and deaths caused by natural immunity to anything, let alone one with 1,200 reported deaths and 9 pages of some 1,300 adverse events that both Pfizer and the FDA wanted kept secret for another 75 years. In addition, the NIH has published that these vaccines do not prevent transmission spread of COVID, nor is there any confidence in the fact, the claimed reduction of symptom severity, since 22% or 34 out of 152 of the fully vaccinated patients in Israeli hospitals died of COVID-19. In fact, a comparative study out of Qatar recently found that previous infections that both the vaccinated and the unvaccinated had the same effectiveness against severe COVID-19 at around 70%. Quote, the protection conferred by hybrid immunity of previous infections and 2-dose vaccine was similar to that of previous infection alone at approximately 50%, which suggests that this protection originated from the previous infection and not from the vaccine. The World Health Council has brought together data from all over the world showing that a historical context just how devastating these vaccines have actually been, including, quote, for common vaccines, we see an average adverse report numbering between 2,000 and 100,000. For COVID-19, there's been 3.7 million. Over 50% of total adverse events and 80% now of all deaths reported with VAERS since 1990 are associated with COVID-19 vaccines.
Joe, you got to wrap it up.
To consider, data from VAERS and FAERS reveals that polio vaccine was recalled in less than 1 year after 10 reported deaths. The swine flu was recalled in less than 1 year after 53 reported deaths. COVID-19 vaccine with over 28,000 associated reports of death has not been recalled after 2 years. And I have more, but called off.
I have a complete copy. I will make sure everybody gets a
I
copy.
have a lot of copy here. There's more. Everybody should have a copy of my total response to the health department's.
Amanda emailed that to us.
Yeah, everybody should have it. Everything is linked. Everything is cited. And
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
May I, just to explain to all of the people that I work with here every month, I felt it was important because we hear things, but we don't hear it all. For some reason, we're not seeing everything. I look at the Department of Health numbers every day. Yesterday's numbers, 10 people in the hospital from Cayuga County. All of them were vaccinated or boosted. That's 100%, whether you have 100 or 10 people, that's 100%. We need to think about what we're doing, not only for our people, but for ourselves. And I just wanted that everybody has an opportunity to expose themselves to data. And I appreciate all of your patience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes.
Just quick note, I think Annie brought this last time, but maybe because of it's a privilege of the floor. Typically, we decided next time that we're gonna get privilege of the floor first. So they didn't have to sit through the presentation. I just wanted to make record of that. But I think this might have been a little confused because it's a privilege of the floor. The other thing, I just want to know, what is our process in presentations? Because this presentation is information, but it also leaves room that it can be debated or whatever, like that. We need to have I don't know if you could just pop up any presentation to the floor. I don't know the ruling on it. Chris,
That's totally up to everyone who sits in the seat.
Yeah.
Our presentation.
Okay.
Any of you that want a presentation, just approach me and it's up to the chair. I just happen to be sitting here this year, but it's up to.
I didn't know.
Oh, that's all right. That's
Asking a question.
good question.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The same type of presentation was had when the doctor was here a month or two ago. This is just the other approach.
So I don't know which one, are you talking about our county doctor?
Yes.
Okay, so our county doctor, I think, has, more access to these presentations often. And so do our county employees. I'm talking about from the public. It was just a question.
Absolutely.
Because, this type of information, I didn't look at all the site work because I was traveling. But it's controversial, it's debatable, and we don't have anything to contradict that. So to put that type of message out without having I would have liked to have the opposite side of that so we can have a discussion because that
We
information.
have the opposite side of it, Brian.
But they came from our people. Like, we can have anybody pop up, and not that I don't think Joe, not that I say Joe's information is wrong, I'm not disputing it, but what if it was? We gotta have it where somebody can have. some
That's
type
why
of
it's
con-
all documented with facts and data, which is more than what we get from the doctors, by the way, Brian.
Okay, thanks. We got to continue, everybody.
Mr. Chairman, just,
Yes, Andy.
I think one quick thing that confused people is it was under privilege of the floor.
Right.
At a presentation.
I probably should have told everybody at the beginning, but that was changed earlier.
Can we go next to privilege of the floor? So, because I think that's what, didn't you suggest it?
Well, we've only got one thing in between there. We got deaths. I have to announce this, right? I sincere condolences to the families and friends of Michael O'Hara. Anybody that knows Mike, former Cayuga County legislator, but he's famous for Ed's Fish Fry. He used to own Fish Fry. Some of us that are a little bit older remember that. So, and it was a great place to eat. Okay, privilege of the floor. Heidi?
Yes, I'd like to ask Chairman for privilege of the floor for Melody Smith Johnson.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
point of order. Doesn't the legislator that represents them have to give them privilege of the floor?
No. We checked on it. Doesn't have to be that way. Anybody can give anybody a privilege.
For the record, I would have granted privilege anyway. I just was confused when I saw that.
That's a good plan because I thought of the same thing. We looked it up. Good question though. So we all know. Okay, Heidi, I'm sorry.
I
Start again.
I was asking chairperson for privilege of the floor for Melody Smith Johnson.
Okay, Melody, please. Right there, ma'am, please.
Promise to keep it 3 minutes. Good evening, Chairman Golden. Thank you, Heidi. And members, thank you for allowing me this time to share with you the exciting news of the opening of Auburn and Cayuga County's first Black woman-owned hybrid co-working event and retail space for female entrepreneurs. I'm the owner of Melodies, located in the Lorraine Building in the Auburn downtown bid at 128 Genesee Street, Suite 100. But before I share more, I want to share with you that I had the honor and the privilege this past weekend to be the Mistress of Ceremonies at the Harriet Tubman Bicentennial Family Banquet with more than 75 of her descendants from across the country and Canada. It was deeply moving to me to be with them as they shared their personal family stories of triumph, lineage, victory, and generations of familial love that started with one phenomenally courageous woman who, by the grace of God, connected them to each other and all of them to what the world is increasingly coming to know as the heart of the Finger Lakes region and the seat of Cayuga County. And I'm talking about the one and only city, Auburn, New York. Harriet Tubman settled here as her chosen hometown, where she and as her family has called her, is an ordinary woman who did extraordinary things. And I'm so grateful that the God who does all things well led me here where her indomitable spirit still spurs women like me and others to be bold, courageous, innovative, and fearless. And because of the sheer shoulders that I'm blessed to stand on, shoulders like Harriet, shoulders like my mom, the late Beverly Smith, and my dear friend Gwen Weber McLeod, I stand before you as a legacy in action. I say that I'm a movement by myself, but I'm a force when I'm linked together with the community of my sisters. Community, that's what Melodies is building in support of female entrepreneurs in this city, this county, and beyond, with intentional emphasis on the Black female business owner and any otherwise underrepresented female entrepreneur. Melodies is where she'll grow to understand that wherever she is in her business journey, she's right where she belongs. And together with others like her, we'll do the work of mastering the skill of living her wildest dreams. So tonight, I'd like to offer you 3 calls to action for your consideration: an invitation, a challenge, and a partnership. I invite you to join me and a few dozen of my friends in support of my ribbon cutting ceremony this Thursday, July 28th at 4 p.m. at 128 Genesee Street. I challenge you to be intentional in your support of women in your circles of influence and your networks. Make them aware that there is now a space for them to join as a professional workspace, a cozy event space, programming for mentorship and networking in a female empowered community. Send them to Melodies. And finally, I offer partnership with like-minded, forward-thinking, courageous spirits, minds, and hearts to continue building this great city and county for the next generation of bold, fearless women to come. And I'm here for it all. And I trust that you are too. So I look forward to seeing you on Thursday as your schedule allows. And actually any other day that you're in the area. Feel free to stop by Melodies because it's truly the place to be. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll be there with a present. I will be there with a present. Okay, minutes to approve, or no proclamations, no public hearing, minutes to approve.
Move on, Petrus.
Second,
Second, Clarko.
any, all in favor?
Aye.
Passed. Cayuga Community College report, Dr. Durand, are you on?
Oh, communications announcement.
I'm sorry, I forgot communications and announcements. There is two of them.
Motion to waive the reading.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Dr. Durant,
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
we can hear you, we can't see you. Are you on the phone, Doc?
I'm here now.
Oh, there you are. We got you now.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Good to be with you. I'm also joined tonight by Angela Winfield, one of our college trustees. We're here to, be able to give an update, and also we have a couple of resolutions in front of you that we're going to ask your support. I know our acting CFO and transitioning a new CFO were able to present to government ops a couple of weeks ago about our college budget. Now, our college budget that's in front of you this evening, it represents an overall reduction of spending of, I believe, approximately $1.4 million. And that is, I think, a true testament to the managerial strategy that our trustees and our leadership group has been putting in and really anticipating the future while making decisions along the way to help set ourselves up to be able to absorb these reductions. If we go back in history just slightly, if you'll indulge me, back in 2015 when I arrived, I don't talk about this in relation to me. I talk about it in relation to, as a point of reference of the last, 5 to 7 years. The college budget was approximately $31 million. And over this period of time, we've been able to reduce the overall spending. I would say live within our means. We've been able to build a fund balance to stabilize the finances of the organization as best we could and continue, like you, to weather the global pandemic, its impact it's had on enrollments and the increased costs associated that have come our way, and certainly have appreciated her funds and other resources to, address some of our short-term and medium-term needs. But that being said, we're proud of our ability to also, while we've had a reduction in our costs, to demonstrate with you in partnership and with your support as our county sponsor, growth in areas of, athletics in our turf facility, a new childcare facility, looking at programs in culinary arts, looking at our programs in manufacturing in both campuses, strengthening our healthcare presence, and really demonstrating our mission and certainly achieving a vision of aligning our core program developments with our community's workforce strengths and our top, sort of human resource need areas. And we're just continuing to evolve and want to look and move ahead. I say that because, we sometimes can get focused on, well, if we're just losing students, what's happening, or the enrollment's down and this is how we get there. I just want to make a statement related to enrollment. Yeah, we're not the only college. In fact, I think all community colleges across the state are down significantly in enrollment in the last several years. That's not an excuse. I think we go as our demographics go, because remember, our mission is to primarily serve as a local access for higher education. And, our enrollment is really the same thing that we all as community leaders, a legislator, economic developers, other businesses, we all continue to work together to figure out ways to attract people to live, work, and learn within the communities in which we serve. But that being said, we're proud of the budget we've put in front of you, because we also, with the leadership of our trustees, We're keeping our tuition flat. We did not introduce any new fees. And we've been able to put ourselves, I think, in a position to, balance what we can and continue to move forward as an organization. With that, as you can see within the budget, we are asking for an increase of 1.5% of our county sponsor. The last couple of years, candidly, I did not ask for that increase because of the unknowns of the pandemic. And, we've appreciated our awareness together that it's okay. And we adjusted our spending as necessary. That equates to approximately, I think it's approximately $46,000 of an increase asked to you, the sponsor, and I'm hopeful you'll support that within our budget that you have in front of you. In addition to that, tonight we have a collective bargaining agreement that has been supported by the group, the ESP group that we negotiated with. Our College Board of Trustees have approved it, and it's in front of you for your support to be able to enact that successor agreement for another 2 years. And I just want to take a moment and say publicly to you how much I appreciate the leadership and the professionalism and collaborative negotiation that we were able to, endure with our ESP group, and appreciate the ability to come to agreement and ask for your support tonight as well. I think the last resolution in the packet is related to a parking agreement, and I know parking was talked about earlier in the presentation today. We appreciate the county's support in being able to provide access to parking for our culinary students, and us being able to ensure that there's not another financial barrier for our students when it comes to being able to use that facility and gain the opportunity to train and learn. And the access to a parking lot with our partner and our county leadership is one that helps make this a reality. So we'd appreciate your support on that. As for the college, obviously we are gearing up as we go into August to our fall opening and preparing for orientation programs and admitting new students and getting students registered for classes, as well as spending the next month or so working with our trustees to review our activities over the last year and start to identify the next goals for the 22-23 year. I look forward to sharing those in more detail as our fall semester begins. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Dr. Durant?
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, Dr. Durant. It's Lydia Patton, Phoenix District 3 Legislator. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. I know that your challenges are great. One of the things that I'd like to ask of you is to please consider getting rid of the vaccination requirement so that the children in our county who want to stay and attend in person can do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else for Dr. Durant? Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. If you could hang on until your resolutions are approved, I'd appreciate it.
I will be
Thank
here.
you, Angela. I thought we were going to see you here, but thank you, Angela.
I'll see you next time.
Okay, committee reports, individual legislative reports. Anybody have anything? I would like to ask the three that went to the National Convention to at least say a few words. Brian, Christina, and Trish, please.
I'll just say that I got home last night at 10:30 and haven't had a chance to process, but it was a great conference. I appreciate the opportunity to have attended. I spent a lot of time going to meetings and sessions about county management and county administration, as well as creating a supportive work environment for county employees. I have some contacts to follow up on and some communities to follow up with that have passed resolutions related to hybrid workplace, and as well as something I thought sounded great, which was a stay in your lane resolution, recognizing the toxic culture of politics at the national level, trying to stay out of that at the local level, recognizing that it creates problems with getting things done locally. So I'm going to get a copy of that stay in your lane resolution and circulate it among the legislators. I will follow up once I have a chance to process my notes on anything else that seems relevant.
Brian, Christina, anything?
I will tell you, I think I will echo Trisha's words. We had an 8-hour layover.
Plus you didn't almost get your meal.
That,
You almost didn't get your dinner.
we mean,
Your dinner, weren't you a little,
Your registration for your.
oh, I didn't get my registration, so, yeah, so it's just, we're really jet lagged. I mean, I've been running all day long, but we will have a report for you, but I really want to echo what Tricia.
all right, thank you, Brad.
Same, I would echo everything that Tricia said, and I will let everybody know the two things that I really focused on while I was there was attending some workshops, talking about facilitating county and city relationships in terms of shared government operations. I think that's something that is vital to our particular area. And also leveraging our arts and culture to create a creative economy here. And I think that's something that we're working towards. So I will share that information. As Trish said, I have time to process and maybe get rid of this jet lag first.
And 8 hours layover is a long time, but at least.
It was a delay.
It wasn't.
Yeah, we just didn't leave.
Okay, chairman's report. I'm gonna be short because we've had a long meeting and we got some more to do. As always, I want to thank all the employees, the department heads, legislators, and certainly all the county employees. Every day I learn something about our departments and our department heads and our employees. And it astonishes me, the work that they do with little that they have to do it with. So I want to give them all the credit in the world. And I want to thank the three of you again for going on this conference. I'm representing us. We really appreciate that. We'll be starting, and you heard it in the executive room there. We're going to be starting our contracts. I think in the middle of August, our first one, and there's going to be 3 more. So it's going to be a long fall with contracts. I can tell you that. You heard Zach and then Josh talk about the county office building. That's just the beginning. I really would like to get that going by next year, at least to have something committed by next year. It's been, and I've said it a million times since 2004, people have been talking about that. Finally, this legislature has a chance to do something about it. And I'm asking all of you for your assistance in getting this thing off the ground. If not this year, next year for sure, please. Form of government. I know Chris has talked about that for quite a while now, and I know the attorneys have talked about that. We will continue to talk about that. We don't know if we're going to get it done this year, but we're going to work on it and try to get it done. Thank you all for all the ARPA input. There's a lot of people have benefited out of our ARPA funds, and we really appreciate it. I've tried to get a committee together now with 4 people to try to come down with, get the last final few $1 million spent and what we want to spend it on and come back to the whole ledge and get that taken care of. Trish, I just want to apologize for you because we're out of order with the presentation and the privilege of the floor. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, I think that's it. I appreciate everything, and let's go right into resolution. Hans?
Ways and Means has 4 resolutions. I offer them as a bundle unless somebody wants them separated.
Oh,
Can I separate WM3?
I'm sorry, which one?
WM3.
I'll move 1, 2, and 4.
Second.
Any discussion? 1, 2, and 4. Not all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, WM3, Hans.
For discussion.
Second.
All right, discussion?
Okay, so this was a position that we're talking about filling, or I'm sorry, promoting in the treasurer's office. It would be a promotion to a senior clerk, principal account clerk, and then a potential fill behind. And our treasurer, Dempsey, explained to us thoroughly, what was going to happen with that. It was confusing, as we just discussed it, Ways and Means, the fill application that was filled out by the department head, and then the resolution itself was complicated. It appeared as though we're adding a position. So I did ask around about this. And one of the things that I found out was that when the 2 departments were separated, the Treasurer's Department and Office of Finance, there was one position that was left under the Treasurer's Office in dollars, but that person resides and does the work in the Office of Finance. So indeed, there is money in your account in the salary line to cover this. However, I think that, that there was an error in that position still being accounted for financially in the treasurer's office. And they are actually working in the Office of Finance. So I guess my understanding of that, if we can ask the budget director about this, I would like to see that get cleaned up separately. Whether or not that, you have a plan for your department, and that's, to me, separate than what we're talking about here. But it was very confusing at the time, so, and I, I understand all the other talk about retirements and things. So my question and my sort of point of discussion is that to our budget director, can we get that cleaned up so that it legitimizes the finance department's budget as well as the treasurer's budget?
Okay, good question. Hey,
Aileen, does this mean that if this stayed as written, the finance department would actually, in the end,
Have a shortfall?
have a shortfall?
That's what I'm afraid of. So I just feel like at this point, we should think about a budget transfer so that everyone's clear and completely transparent about, what's available in the salary line in each department. So
I think it's a good question. Chris?
Sure. So I just need some clarification because this is a revelation. So is this money necessary to fill an existing position in finance? So the reason why I ask is if that money is allocated to an existing position, then it obviously impacts you know what I mean? If you have the money in your budget, I don't have any problem giving the treasurer what he needs to get his job done, but I just don't want to put the cart before the horse.
Then can you fill us in a little bit and help us out?
Yeah, we would have to do a resolution to transfer the funds from the treasurer's department to the finance department. When we were looking at this, I did see that an employee who was budgeted in one area, because we didn't know how it was going to split when we were trying to plan this in the fall, is actually still working in the finance department. So they will be over budget by the end of the year in their salaries. And nobody was hired. I mean, it was just a matter of
Right,
budgeting versus where people worked, ended up being one person off, is basically what happened.
Hold on, Trish had her hand up.
So I guess the follow-up question on that is this adding additional staff then and adding to our existing budget that was adopted beyond what we have currently?
You're looking at me, right?
Yeah.
No, this is not adding. This is just backfilling a position. One of our people is retiring in September. And all we're doing is moving an existing person into that position and backfilling behind that. As you mentioned earlier, and we started to discuss here, the budgeting issue is a separate issue. All we're doing is backfilling a position. It's crucial because this person is going to be retiring in September. And with civil service not having tests and exams, we're going to have to hire somebody on a provisional basis if we can find them with an upcoming season of tax collection, a heavy season coming up. So we really have to get somebody in this position, but that's separate from the budget position that Lynn just discussed. And to your question specifically, no, we're not adding additional person.
I guess just to follow up.
Yes, go ahead.
So when the budgets are reconciled and the funds are transferred from your budget to finance's budget to cover that person who's embedded in finance, does that mean we have to then add additional funds to your budget to cover the position that you're backfilling?
I deflect that to Lynn a little bit. I would say there's going to have to be an accounting modification made at that point.
Someone will have to read what this resolution says, honestly, to me, because I think it does say that you're creating a position, doesn't it? I think what happened is it's a little confusing. When this resolution was written, the employee had not retired yet. She is now retired. So at this point, this resolution is not necessarily doing what the intention was. He will actually have to bring another resolution to fill another one. Right now, someone's leaving, but this resolution is saying about creating a position. So it's a little confusing now.
And
Elaine, go ahead.
to me, that's what I was confused at the Ways and Means meeting, and then there was follow-up questions. If I'm not mistaken, the principal account clerk that you have now based on a reclassification, there was no title and person in that job. You have one now because civil service reclassified it. And you then filled behind, you promoted someone from within to a new job that you must have had existent but not funded, and you filled behind it. So that's where I was getting so confused, because there is a person there now and a backfill, which means there's someone new.
Yes, this is a little muddy. This is very difficult. This is the fourth time I've been through this with
Right.
everybody because it's confusing. That hasn't taken place yet until this resolution is passed tonight.
And when it does.
And when it does, she will be reclassified
Yep.
from a 10 to a 14. She isn't yet.
Right.
And that is to backfill the position for the person that's leaving.
But that's not this person. The person you're promoting is the same person you're backfilling?
Well, she's going to have to backfill right now because this person's leaving in September and we don't have anybody else.
I guess I don't know who she is.
Stacy.
No, I mean, you're promoting someone to a reclassified job. So she was the 10, you're making her a 14.
Right.
You're filling the 10 behind her.
Yes.
So that's two people.
It's not two people though, because first of all, we went to a 14 because civil service recommended
I
that they do that because they didn't have another one available in a 12.
Yep.
So that's why she's going to a 14. She's not only going to fill a position, the person leaving, she's also backfilling behind my deputy because we don't have a backfill for that. These are things that weren't contemplated when the office was split. Okay, so we are trying to prepare for this. The person that's retiring in September pulled the pin on us. She was supposed to retire next June. When I sat down with everybody, including Lynn, and as she had just mentioned, we were preparing a resolution for that time, and that's why this resolution says that. She's forced us now to backfill her position. So Stacy's going to move up into her position, and that will create a vacancy in Stacy's position. And all we're trying to do is backfill that. There's just one new body that's going to be coming in. Okay? Now, one more thing, and hopefully this doesn't make it worse. When the department was split and there was 6 months of monies left in the department in there that was between the finance that's going to create the shortfall in finance, that was contemplated as using for the new person next year. And that's why Lynn recommended that we, through our conversation, that we do it the way we did. But now it's moved up, so we have to address it. So if we have to change the resolution a bit in wording, we'll do that. But I just want to be clear, all we're doing is backfilling a position, not adding a new person.
Chris first, and then Brian.
So somebody please help me.
I
I don't have any problem with the treasurer's department having what they need to fulfill their duties. But someone just tell me, are there funds available to pay the position in the budget after the reconciliation? Yes or no?
Right now, because this woman is retiring right now, a position isn't going to get added. You will have to bring another resolution to fill that job.
Which he intends to do.
Well, that hasn't happened yet. So that's going to be your decision point of adding another position. Because right now, Stacy's going to get promoted. We'll hire someone off the street and this other woman will retire at the same time. So really, he's back to still having 3 people.
I need to clarify my question.
So that is all fine, right? Someone's retiring and someone's coming in. Another resolution will have to come forward to actually do another fill because this happened a little more prematurely than we expected.
And that would be the additional staff.
That would be the additional one. Right now, it's really like.
Could somebody please tell me, is there funds in the budget? Like, I'm not
Now there
concerned.
is because someone's retiring. So I don't actually even have to move it. You know, I mean, we. can
But
still-
does that money maybe I'm misunderstanding what's going on. Does that money need to be allocated to fill to pay someone in the finance department?
There's double the money because we should move the money over, but someone is leaving that was unexpected. So that will be unspent salary. She's retiring right now.
Are you done? Just Christina?
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute, Christina.
I would say if this is much confusion is coming out of this, we need a cleaned up resolution that clearly states what's happening. And if there's funds that need to be moved to make sure that this works, then I would like to see that resolution where funds are moved. We've asked all of our other departments to do that in the past when they've moved things around. That I don't see why this should be operated in any different form.
Right.
So this, I'm gonna ask you some simple questions because I'm confused as well, okay? How many people you have in that department now?
Three.
Three. And one is, because one, you're anticipating a retirement.
Correct.
right?
She is retired.
She is retired, right? Is all three positions budgeted? Or that's what you're talking about? Do we have the funds? Like, was it a budgeted and we're just waiting for her to retire and you're almost keeping continuity? Is that what's going on?
Lynn, check me on this, but that's what we had prepared for next year when she left. But because she's leaving early, there is monies available now. There is no problem. It's just confusing the way that it happened.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
I know Chris Peters and I were on the committee that separated the departments, so I do understand that technically there would have been no, and then preparing the budget, there wouldn't have been extra salary line to anticipate a new hire in that department. So in my mind, when we were going through, I thought, that doesn't seem to make sense. But you do have the money there because it was erroneously put there, right? So there's nothing, so I'm not calling you out for saying you can fill or whatever. So that makes sense to me now because I know we were part of this process. And then the fill behind of the retirement is where we would have discussion about adding staff. Does that make sense?
You want two people, right? You don't want
But at
three.
the end of the day, I'm only gonna have three people. Just the same thing. We're just backfilling behind them and filling them in as they retire.
Follow-up question.
Go ahead, Ryan.
You budgeted for three people, right?
Yes.
All right, you're gonna have three people.
You say there was, I want to qualify that is I came in January, the budget was put together for those three people and the department was split.
So you have three people now?
Yes.
Don't look at me, Chris.
All right, call the question before we overthink this.
We don't know what the question is. That's a problem.
Question is called, Hans, it's your committee. Do you want to vote on this? You want to pull it? Do you want to wait, get a new resolution?
I think.
I would proceed to go ahead with it. The money is there in the budget, let's get it over with.
Are we sure the money's in the budget after the budget is reconciled?
Lynn is saying yes.
Lynn is saying yes.
Yes, because we're really just filling a job as someone who's retired, was budgeted in the treasurer's department.
Okay, so it's my fault. I'm misunderstanding.
There's two things that are going on here, and I think I don't think we need to overthink this. Right now, you're just promoting somebody and someone else is retiring and we're filling that job. Comes with another resolution later to really do the backfill behind the person getting promoted, then you can talk about it more and they'll have a budget.
Okay, everybody, the question has been called. Hans, WM3. Or, yeah, WM3. WM3.
WMC, yeah, I move it.
Is there a second?
We have a motion and a second on the floor.
Yeah, the question's called. We have to have that.
Well, it's been so long, we forgot.
We're supposed to vote on it.
Okay, there's been a discussion, so all in favor of WM3, the way it's written.
I thought we were supposed to vote on call the question. I thought we went over that in our last.
We are voting.
Did.
Call the question is a motion.
Yeah.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 2 opposed, 3. Brian, you opposed?
I'm opposed because I'm still
Confused.
I'm not confused. I'm saying like, oh, go ahead. I shouldn't have.
Okay, you got the total?
Yeah, Muldrow, Daily.
Okay, now the motion again, WM3. All in favor? Who's opposed? We got just Christina, I think. Okay, it's passed. Okay, thanks, Hans. We got through that one.
Right.
Elaine?
Yep.
Health and Human Services?
Health and Human Services had 14 resolutions. HH9 was pulled at committee. HH12 was pulled at committee. HH1 has been amended at both committees, discussed at ways the amendment. the amendments brought forward, putting the resolution back in accordance with the policy of the county and giving the authorization for the 6-month period. So I would make a motion to bundle HH 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 13, 14.
Second, I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion on any of those? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes. Hey, thank you, Elaine. Government ops, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's have some fun. Let's try, government operations has 13 resolutions. They've all passed through committee, and I would offer them as a bundle until they're asked to be separated.
I'd like to
Or
separate
unless-
GO12, please.
I'm sorry, which one?
I would like to separate GO12, please.
12. So I would offer 1 through 11 and 13.
Any discussion on 1 through 13,
I have a discussion.
excluding 12? Yes.
I just wanted to reflect on GO1, authorizing the clerk to abolish part-time DMV cashier and create a full-time. This has been years in the making. And I know through dealing with the budget closely, I'm looking forward to, seeing a balance with the overtime use. But I know that this has been years in the making for you, so I'm happy to support that. Hear an amen.
Wait till it passes.
Any other discussion on any of those? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed.
One more, Mr. Chair, I would offer GO12, approving the 2022-23 budget for Cayuga Community College.
Motion,
Second, I'll move it.
second,
Second.
discussion.
Again, and I know everybody's heard me say this about this, we are closing our doors to folks who have decided that they are not going to vaccinate. This impacts our budget. If we are not allowing people into the college where they want to study and learn, there are options. And I understand that they talked about the option being online for Cayuga County, but now we're up against a national competition where they can shop this online. And I think that's going to negatively impact the budget.
Dr. Duran, are you still on the line? Dr. Duran?
Yeah.
Are you, yeah. Did you?
Yes, can you hear me?
Did you hear
Yeah.
Heidi? Excuse me.
Yeah.
Lydia?
Yes, and I appreciate that. And I could have responded. I could have responded to the comment earlier. This requirement of Cayuga Community College is not one that the Cayuga Community College Board or myself as president. This is one of those things that, as president of the SUNY campus, I'm responsible, and our trustees are responsible for being compliance with SUNY policy. And it is SUNY's policy that to be an on-campus student, you have to be vaccinated.
If I could, Doctor, as president of Cayuga Community College, I would bring this message back that you heard it loud and clear that this is a concern, and I would really appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Yep.
Did you hear that, Doctor? Okay.
Yes.
Right.
And I appreciate. Yep.
Okay, Jim?
Yes, Dr. Durant, this is Jim Basile, District 1. Just a lot of times, yes, I understand that you have to follow policy. We all do in some aspect. I guess I'll ask, do you agree with this or do you not agree with that policy?
I view my role pretty clearly as.
Dr. Duran, you're not coming in too clear.
Should
Try it
not
again.
impact my.
Yeah, Brian, you're not coming in. Can
Well,
you
I
do
mean,
something?
I'm trying to adjust my phone here. I had to switch where I was.
All right, thanks.
I view it pretty clearly from my perspective, and you'll probably disagree, or hopefully you could at least understand where I'm coming from. As a president and an employee of the college, I see it as my fiduciary responsibility to have some of my personal views left at the door and to ensure the compliance for the college to not put us at risk for any violations. And in that case, I see it very clearly that it's a requirement of all SUNY schools. I'm one of 64 that should be following. There is a process for exemptions for certain aspects. And respectfully, I view my role as president that I need to just ensure our compliance to not put our college at risk in any other unintended way.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm gonna encourage Legislator Kerr to come up with that resolution of discussion national issue. It's totally unfair to even ask about personal views. It's totally unfair to even put him in it. This is a budget, and there's several. The question I have is how many private schools? We already know the SUNY schools in New York State are now requiring the vaccine, but also how many private schools? This is something that we're really putting. We shouldn't be discussing at this point. If you don't want to support the budget, then you wouldn't support any college in town or any type of support. This is a requirement that he has to follow. So what do you want him to do?
Andy, so hold on.
I'm just saying, like, what are we talking about? We are here to
Brian,
put
wait a minute.
local issues in our county.
Right.
I agree.
Wait.
I agree with Brian to a certain extent. My only problem with all of this is the requirement was on the students. There was never a requirement on the faculty. So you were requiring the least ought to get the virus. So, I mean, if anybody in this room thinks politics isn't involved in all of this for the last 2.5 years, well, you got your head in the sand. Right. The fact that it's required for the students, not for the faculty, and I just stopped asking you that question, Dr. Durant, whether or not it's ever been settled, because it never should have been that way to start with. So you're going to require it. We've all been on that campus for a few different meetings, and y'all know where the hell I stand on it. I'm not vaccinated, so why was I allowed on that campus for a meeting? I mean, you require something, you require it for everyone, students, faculty, whoever. Shouldn't be any special circumstances because the union who backs the faculty wants to fight it or something. I mean, it's kind of asinine. End of story.
Heidi, then Brian.
I'd just like to say that as a teaching faculty at the CCC campus, I was indeed required to be vaccinated, boosted, required, show that proof, and also be tested on a rotating basis as the
When did that start?
immediately as soon as I was allowed back on campus.
But when? Because we can go back to the minutes of the month that I asked Brian if
2020, this was 2000, the fall of 2021.
Right?
Again.
Yeah, so the
Wrong, Brian.
Okay.
Go ahead, Doctor.
Okay. So the SUNY policy never stated that. We as a college within a collection, we did require and through SUNY policy, the surveillance testing at one point and for a long period of time, it was weekly, and then it went to every other week. And then just the last few months before the end of the spring semester, it was monthly. Up until still today, if you're not vaccinated, you must wear a mask. Up until today, if you're not vaccinated, you still had to do surveillance testing. So we have had those things in place and continue to have some. Now, there are some adjustments that may or may not be made because the policy has been changed. I can respect and understand the concern over, inequality or inconsistency, but that's never an easy place to be in a position to lead, because logic sometimes can also get into any of our minds. Say, well, how could that be versus that? That being said, though, we had support from different groups, leaders, to pursue a full campus vaccination requirement. We did look at our data for those that were full-time or had on-campus responsibilities. And at the time, we were able to identify that 90+% of those individuals were vaccinated, number one. And number two, by the time that we were about to potentially take action with some resolutions and trying to be collaborative with our associations, some of the requirements were evolving or changing. And at the time, we decided to see how those continue to evolve before we go. We can all appreciate the times evolve, policy thinking has evolved, and things change all the time. What we're talking about now may be different than November. So I can respect it. I do get a little concerned that this is getting put into our budget evaluation because I feel it to be separate. We can continue to keep you informed on the policy implications related to COVID, but hopefully I can ask for your support for our college budget and the associated resolution.
A couple of things. One is if we start, this is an issue that's going well beyond our county. And if we start to mess with Brian's budget, we're really hurting the kids in our community because we're limiting their choices to outside the community. So it has an opposite effect. The other, when we sat in here, when we came here our first day, January 1st, everybody, there was a man, we lifted mask mandate. It hit us right on the floor before we even, 10 minutes after we got sworn in. One of the comments was, if you want to wear a mask, right? It's your choice. If you want to get vaccinated, get vaccinated. It's almost like now we're going to mock and punish the people that chose to do those things. So it's either like, what are we talking about? We need to be talking about county issues that affect the county. We're getting so off topic. We spent too much time and going back and forth about things that we can't change, and it also caused division. Let's talk about things we can change. We got a whole bunch of resolutions that affect the county. Let's focus on that. I mean, I don't know. This is we're getting off track.
Can I call the question?
Thank you.
Words out of my mouth.
Okay, I need a first for calling question. Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
I'd like a roll call vote on this.
On the question?
No, on this resolution.
GO 12.
Talk to you afterwards.
GO 12, all right.
I'm reading the list.
Roll call vote on GO 12, everybody. It's a budget for the community college.
That's it.
Yep.
Okay. Jim DeSeal,
Yes.
Andy Dennison,
Yeah.
Lydia Patty Ruffini. No. Chris Petrus,
Yes.
Aileen McNabb Coleman,
Yes.
Bob Shay, sorry.
We're even. Yes.
Yeah, you got me. Was that a yes?
Yes, it was. Twice.
Hans Butcher,
Yes.
Mark Strong,
Yes.
Heidi Nightingale,
Yes.
Elaine Daly,
Yes.
Tricia Kerr,
Yes.
Christina Clarko,
Yes.
Michael Diddy is excused, Brian Muldrow,
Yes.
David Gould.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, planning. Eileen?
I don't have any that went through. If you want me to.
Yes.
Okay, I have one resolution that we, at planning committee, we discussed, it's a particular strategy for, reaching out to foundations most successful within a certain time period. That I was going to bring a resolution to the floor today to help make up a funding gap for application, to CFA funding in the state of $250,000. You will see in this resolution in front of you, and I don't know, I think it was circulated.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Has everybody got one?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Just to be sure that everyone's on the same page. If you go down to the resolved, that 250 will come from fiscal year 22 Medicaid account line. And if anyone has any questions, Lynn is here to help understand, that that's a valid place to take the money from, but we certainly can have discussion on that. So I'm here today to offer this up as a resolution. I am appreciative of the members of the planning committee who had this discussion, and we're open to bringing this to the full legislative floor.
Move it for discussion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Andy?
Just I guess clarification, whereas up to $500,000 in competitive New York State grant funding will be available. I mean, are we gonna get something for our 250,000, or is it just a hope and hope that we might get it, we might not?
I mean, is Steve in here?
Steve is here.
Where is he?
Because that wording kind of sucks.
I'm sorry, I can't see. Steve, Lynn, either one of you or both of you.
To answer your question, we're applying for a $500,000 grant, and that's the maximum amount of the grant that we could receive under the grant program.
So are we pulling the cart before the horse here? Because if we don't get the grant, what happens to the 200? I mean, that's all I'm asking, because the way it was worded.
Mine too, it says pending a
Don't
successful
get the grant,
EPA grant, EPF grant.
we're not doing the project. We have to come back with a different project.
So the $250,000, where's it go now? I guess that's what I'm just trying to get at. Where's?
Lindy, can you answer that?
Yeah, right now, it's just the available budget, really. So it's available to be spent on Medicaid. It will not be spent on Medicaid, it will be under budget. So you can transfer this expenditure line if the project goes forward. If there's no project, it will be spent.
Okay, okay, that clarifies it. Okay.
Any other discussion? Yeah, Amy.
If there's no project, for clarity, the 1 million that's part of this to make up, that will be up for something different with the as well.
To leverage future funding.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But we were told by Steve, I thought, that making sure that there was a complete funding package made this grant much more competitive.
Exactly.
That true?
That's correct, right, Steve?
Yes.
And Doug, Doug both worked on it too, so we appreciate it. I
think it's behooves the legislature. There was a discrepancy in the timeline, which is why this is before that. Am I correct, Steve, that we have to have a complete application submitted by the end of July?
By 29th.
Mr.
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Bob. The application has to go in on Thursday. The deadline's actually Friday, but sometimes the computers die on the application due date. So we have to press the button on Thursday. That's why we scrambled to try to get this after the planning committee discussion last week in front of the body today. So we appreciate you considering it.
I think I tried to explain it to everybody today, but I'm certainly in favor of this. We've got a gem out there, and this is a start to do something. And if we can give $250,000, have a better chance of getting, a much better chance of getting this grant, I'm certainly in favor of it.
Just to follow up, and Steve, we won't get notification on that grant until September?
Can you repeat the question?
Go ahead, buddy. Repeat.
Speak up, please.
Typically, they come out in December. This year, they'll be coming out prior to November 3rd.
Sorry.
You hear that, Bob?
This is for Mistress.
So we'll know in November.
Okay.
Trish, did you have your hand up or just itching?
Both. Well, I just wanted to make a comment. I had a chance to meet with Steve earlier today and talk through this, and it definitely has my support. But I just roll back to when we approved the $1 million investment in Emerson Park. The thought at the time was that significant investment would be able to be leveraged multiple times over to bring in millions of dollars into this county to finish that project in totality. And I appreciate the work the staff's been doing to try to get funding in for this project. And that is certainly not an easy task. But I want to just press the need to keep the momentum going, and we should be firing on all fronts with all foundations in this region to invest in this project. I know they're looking at corporate sponsors as well, which is fantastic, because I think that makes a lot of sense. But I also think we should be pressing our representatives in Albany and our federal representatives as well, to see what other funds we can leverage and bring into this project to get it done, so that it's not being piecemealed out over years and we're not losing that return on our initial investment.
So I just wanted to make those comments, and hopefully those are things that we can advance, in the next couple of months as this application is being evaluated.
I appreciate it, and I agree with 100%. That's why I've said for years that we need a grant writer, and I think that'll help us obtain any kind of grants we need, especially for the park. Any other discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Steve and Doug. Great job. Thank you. Public Works, Andy.
Works at 7, number 7 was pulled because apparently the city told us we could pull it. So I offer 1 through 6 as a bundle. Unless somebody wants to joyously separate some and
Move in pieces.
second, have more fun.
Who was the second? Did you get it?
Strong.
Okay. Any discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Judicial and Public Safety, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. DPS has 11 resolutions. Please beware, be patient with me. We've got to get through some readings here. JP3 was pulled before the JPS committee meeting. JP4 was tabled at Ways and Means until the next JPS committee meeting. JP7 was amended at Ways and Means. County Sheriff is here. I'm going to let him be specific about that particular resolution, and then we'll move to the other one that was amended also, which is JP10.
Sheriff, if you want, we gotta move.
Yeah. Oh,
You want to do
I'm sorry.
some as a bundle? and-
Yeah, bundle. So you want to move them as a bundle? I'll move. Here we go. I would like to offer JP 2, 5, 6, 8, 9, 11 as a bundle, unless somebody else would have them separated.
Moved. What about 1?
I got an issue with that one too, so.
Second.
Any discussion on those? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Okay, go back to Brian's question. JP1. JP1 has a misprint that I do want to clarify before we go ahead and approve it. I'm just going to read it as wrote, and then I'll show you the correction. JP1 says authorizing the chairman of the Cayuga County Legislature to sign an agreement with the Federal Emergency Management. It says association, and I was informed today that that word association should be agency. So it should say Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, for the utilization of their Integrated Public Alert Warning System, IPAWS. So
I would move it with the amendment to change association to agency.
Second.
All in favor of the amendment?
I
Okay, we got a motion for the resolution. Second?
As amended.
Second?
Second.
All in favor of the resolution as amended?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to JP7. As I said, it was amended at a ways. I'll have the sheriff explain it so that it's clear.
JP7 for discussion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Sheriff, would you like to?
JP7 was simply amended to add budget lines that needed to be added. So that one's all set as amended. JP10 will need additional amendment.
Oh, I would be JP10.
Do
this one.
I'm sorry. 7 needs to be voted on, sir.
Needs to be voted on with the amendment.
No.
As it is.
Already amended.
It's already amended.
It's already amended that Ways and Means, sir.
All right, and we got a motion and a second?
Yep.
All right, all in favor, JP7.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes, Mark?
Here comes it.
Okay, JP10. JP10 was amended at Ways and Means, but so
Move it for discussion.
move, yeah, second.
Any discussion? Sheriff?
JP10 is relative to creating and filling a position, actually contracting with the Moravia School District to create a special patrol officer position. There was discussion at Judicial Public Safety and Ways and Means about potentially asking the district to pay some administrative fees to cover some of the administration of the contract, as well as supervisory fees for a position to be created for oversight of that position at the school. I did speak with the school district. They are agreeable to a 15% fee to cover some of the administrative and supervisory costs. So I think moving forward, I agree that any future contract, if we contract with any additional school districts or amend the current contracts that we have with districts, that we should add this fee, but Moravia is agreeable to doing that. So with JP 10, I would just simply ask that we add a resolve in reference to adding a 15% fee to cover administrative costs and supervisory oversight of the special patrol officer assigned to the district if this passes.
I'll make a motion.
I second to move the motion as proposed amendment, with the proposed amendment.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Sheriff.
Wait, don't wait.
As amended.
Got to vote on as amended.
Amendment.
Move it as amended.
Second. All in favor of the resolution as amended?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have 4 ledges. Ledge 1 is appropriating $250,000 of the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, to the Cayuga County Youth Bureau.
Yeah.
Got it. Any, a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Who was that?
Anderson.
Andy? Okay. All right, thank you. Ledge 2 was tabled that ways. Ledge 3, County of Cayuga exempting residential energy sources and services from sales, compensating use taxes pursuant to the authority of Article 29 of the tax law of the state of New York.
Move it, Lydia.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Jim,
Go ahead. Do you want to?
go ahead, Ed.
Mr. Chairman, for a change, I'd like to introduce a resolution which is going to save taxpayers money instead of cost them money. Thank you.
You're welcome. Jim?
So I just had one question about when it says residential energy sources, how is that defined? Maybe the attorney can help us. Is this strictly
Fuel
oil,
Home
propane?
Yeah.
Any home.
Any kind of home heating.
Yes, home heating.
Believe it or not, it would include wood, which I don't think many of the laws.
Anything from chips, wood chips on,
Coal.
coal, oil, LP, natural
So
gas.
if your house is electric,
I don't believe so.
No.
okay.
Good question. Good question. Any other discussion? Did somebody else have their hand up?
Heidi has her.
Okay, Brian?
The
Oh, Heidi.
section 2 reads that the act shall take effect September 22nd. Is this a permanent?
Yes,
What we have to,
it can be reinstated by the full legislature at some other time. It won't be permanent for right now until the legislature takes action to reinstate it.
I think it reads,
Is the number 0?
no sunset.
Go ahead, Chris.
I just want to make sure, I guess I'm having a tough time thinking this evening. I want to make sure that this is just specifically on the home heating fuels. It's just for.
Right, it's not motor vehicle
Okay,
fuel
Not gasoline for cars.
or diesel.
so it's limited to that.
It's not NICEAG customers. I mean, I'm really confused. This is, we have heating or fuel oil delivered to your house because that's how you heat it.
Yes.
It is not anything to do
Mr.
with.
Attorney, can you explain it a little bit more, please?
Yeah, like, for example, up in the north where we're quite narrow, I mean, you'll hear some of the propane companies complain that when they deliver in Creek, for example, which is Wayne County, they don't charge the sales tax. When they deliver to Cayuga County residents, they do charge the sales tax. And then you get to Hannibal, which is Oswego County, again, no sales tax. So it depends on where the delivery site is as imposed when you fill out the sales tax form. I mean, they're right on the Department of Tax and Finance site. You can look and see. Find out everybody if you want to, but you'll see what's included and where it's charged.
Was that your question? I don't know if that was your question.
Yeah, I was not
Okay,
totally
can
clear
you
what.
try it
was-
again?
You know, I'm looking at people that heat their house through NICEAG or, and there's nothing to do with any of that.
Natural gas.
Well, yeah, if you had natural gas, there'd be a sales tax on it.
So this will exempt it?
4%.
Not all of it.
Is it electric to heat your home, as I
If I
understand?
get my NICEAG bill then there's a county tax on that,
Is
and
it-
that will be exempt.
Is it for gas?
Yes.
Then there won't be a tax on there anymore.
So this will impact and save people in the city of Auburn and not just people outside the county.
Certainly.
Everybody. Yeah. Good question. Yeah, Brian.
Do we ever do an evaluation of not having those tax dollars, how they will impact our, will we have a shortage to our budget because we don't have that money?
Yes, that has been figured out. Lynn, do you want to explain that? Please.
Mary Beth really did the presentation. I mean, I don't have the numbers. I mean, it is $1 million is what she projected.
$1 million was you projected
To
that
the
we-
county,
Yeah.
lost revenue.
Lost
revenue, right.
So at this point, how does that affect our budget? Like, we don't have a budget to look at. I mean, I'm not opposed.
I know what you mean.
My question.
But the question has to go to Lynn.
We're gonna have $1 million shortage.
That'll be every year too. That's not 1 year.
It's every year.
Ask her. Then I'll have to answer that question, Brian.
There's nothing to answer. I mean, right, the money won't be there.
$1 million less in sales tax revenue.
Right, but Lynn knows the exact amount. That's what I was saying.
No.
So we have a 4%, we're going to zero. Right, so when we go to zero, where do we find that other $1 million?
It's a good question. That's up to the legislature.
Exactly.
I just don't know. I mean, I'm not saying I'm opposed, I just don't.
I understand.
Consider stopping spending as we are. We're
We're not gonna
spending money
stop
like
spending.
drunken sailors, and just, we need to cut back. We're looking at $30 million to renovate the building, et cetera, and we're still spending money. Yes, we need to cut back on spending. And this tax is totally unfair because it's based on a necessity. New York State, in its wisdom, took off their 4% of the tax on home heating fuels, okay? Back years ago, Cayuga County never did, and it's high time we did. This is a moral thing as much as anything.
And you know what? I agree with you. I do agree with you, because it's like having food, right? I do agree with you. My point is, if we're gonna have a deficit of $1 million, you say stop spending. Have you seen, I'm just asking you a question, because I don't know. Have you seen a budget?
Have I seen a
Do you have a
budget?
budget to show us?
Not at this time. I
So
know-
basically,
I
we're
know the loss of
blindly,
revenues,
I agree with you, but I'm saying we're blindly doing this.
Let me
without seeing
speak.
a budget.
Okay, the loss of revenues is gonna, to the county budget is gonna be roughly $1 million. We probably have an extra $4 to $5 million of fund balance right now. Some of the fund balance would fill in the budget, will fill in the hole in the budget, okay, if there is one. And we'll have to continue from there.
Okay,
Lydia.
Lydia. Yeah, and then Christina.
When the presentation happened last week, Mary Beth did say that we have $4 or $5 million excess sales tax revenue. So we wouldn't feel a negative impact of $1 million based on that excess revenue. That's the way I understood it.
Christina.
So those of us that were traveling were not here for that presentation, nor was that presentation forwarded to us. So this information we don't have. I would like to say that this is a big thing to make a decision on. And I do agree that we need to be considering alleviating this stress on our constituents. However, this is too important to have not all of the data in front of us. We need to have this budget. We need to have these numbers in front of us. So I would like to ask that this get tabled until we can have all of this information and address that when we have this information forward.
Chris.
I would like to clarify my answer to Elaine. It does not affect what's charged in the city. I'm looking at the form, the city, right, is preempted on sales tax. They have imposed the 4% as well. So if this resolution were to pass, it would only apply to those outside of the city. And your questions on electricity, part one is residential gas, propane, 100 pounds or more, electricity and steam. Cayuga charges that. Second, residential gas, propane, 100 pounds or more, electricity and steam. Same one does charge it. Residential coal, fuel oil and wood for heating. That one actually is charged by Cayuga County. We don't charge for non-residential gas, propane, electricity, and steam. Just residential.
This will exempt businesses too, or no? They're already
No,
exempt.
we don't charge.
Oh, okay,
If they're already at zero.
Don't charge
Okay,
it.
businesses are already at zero.
Sorry.
The city wouldn't be affected by this.
Unless the city does it, so.
I also feel like this should be tabled. I'm not sure what the rush is. And there's so many questions in terms of where we're even at with our budget right now, with our budget to actual on our projections with sales tax. We had a brief conversation with Mary Beth before this meeting, and it sounds like we're relatively flat. Maybe 500,000 over what we projected. So there needs to be an accounting for this $1 million, and it's $1 million moving forward every single year. I'm not opposed to not taxing fuel. I totally agree with you, Hans, that that's a basic necessity. But at the same time, it's not a universally enjoyed benefit. How many people in our county heat with electric? I've had homes before that were heated by electric. They're not going to get this benefit. At the same time, the lost revenue is going to impact everybody countywide. So the benefit is going to be enjoyed by residents outside of the city, but the cost is going to be borne by all residents. I think there's way too many questions. It's a huge budget number, and I don't see any reason why it has to be voted on tonight. And I guess my answer will be no if we do vote on it tonight.
So I understand the timeline of this can be pushed back for further discussion. So I would be interested in tabling this for that purpose. There is new information that we're getting here as we're sitting in our seats. I would like to process this further. I do agree with the fact of giving folks a break and however we can hit their wallets most directly, I'm in favor of. But I just want to make sure that we're making up that million somewhere, have an idea. I also, to piggyback on what Trish was mentioning, we do need, and I wanted to take this opportunity at the end of the meeting to ask if the legislature will join me in asking the budget director to give us a year-to-date budget projection in budget actual on how the 22 budget has been performing. What have we seen so far? What is it looking like? Because I've seen this, I've just heard, just sitting here, the fund balance numbers are kind of not, they're not known, right? So I would like to see that information so that we knew. And then if we do feel comfortable, I'm not opposed to taking steps.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to have this voted on tonight. We have people in our county who are going to be purchasing their fuel oil. They're going to be making purchases to heat their homes this winter. I understand that it doesn't impact the people in the city, but it does impact all of my constituents. And I think that we should all vote yes to get rid of this tax, or we should start taxing food.
Come on.
It's
I don't
the
like the
same thing,
sarcasm.
Brian. I gotta heat my house.
Brian,
All right.
okay.
Just a point of clarification that to say it doesn't impact people in the city is not a truly accurate statement.
Sorry, I heard that as the argument.
The lost revenue will impact everybody countywide, and we're in a period of high inflation. Our costs are going up, and we have a healthy fund balance right now, but we don't have a sense of where we're at with our budget right now. We haven't had a budget to actual. We don't know how our budget is performing. We have contracts that we're negotiating with virtually every union in this county. And we can look at that fund balance number and feel confident, but I wouldn't, because it's, with the way where the costs are going up, and I think it's short-sighted to not look at everything completely, and really get a sense of where we're at financially and how we're going to make up this lost revenue moving forward without having any idea of where we're at with our budget.
Andy first, then Brian.
Well, I think you and I have been here 7 years. I don't know. I think just you and I. Well, yeah, Aileen, sorry.
Brian was like,
What was it? 149, 150? We're at
150.
We're pushing 165 now. Let's not fool ourselves with where are we going to find the savings? We're not. We're government. I mean, we talk about trying to find the savings, but trust me, I'd love to try to find the savings since I'd like to be back at 150 where we started, but so I don't know. I mean, just let's move on, vote on it or not, one or the other. I'm for it.
I would ask the floor to table this because I don't want this resolution to get shot down and defeated. I just think that without having a year-to-date budget, and we haven't seen one yet, never seen one yet, how can we make a decision of $1 million? Or maybe we might go to 1%. We don't even know where we're at. We don't have a year-to-date budget. So I would suggest, I would hope that everybody would table this. I wouldn't want this to get defeated just because we don't have enough information.
I'll second the motion to table.
There it is.
Okay, any further discussion?
It was just driving me nuts. It's like,
Hans, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry. Did you have your hand up?
We got a motion.
No?
It's tabled, isn't it?
no, not yet.
Motion to table.
Voting on it.
No discussion.
It has to be voted on.
Has to be voted.
Okay,
It has to be voted.
let's have a roll call, all right, please? Sure. This is to table
Nothing.
WM, or Ledge 3, excuse me. Everybody straight on that, please?
So let me just ask, a no vote means we're gonna continue to,
We're gonna vote on it.
Right.
okay,
Jim Seal,
no,
Eddie Dennison,
No, and I retract my with bells on earlier.
Jenny Ruffini,
No.
Chris Petrus,
No.
Aileen McNabb Coleman,
Yes.
Bob Shay,
No.
Hans Petcher,
No.
Mark Strong,
No.
Heidi Nightingale,
Yes.
Elaine Daly,
Yes.
Tricia Kerr,
Yes.
Christina Clarko,
Yes.
Michael Didio is excused, Brian Muldrow,
Yes.
David Gould.
No.
Defeated.
Okay, so now, go ahead, Chris.
I just wanted to, I don't know what I want to do. I'm lost. I want to feather out the difference between the discussion between the necessity for a year-to-date budget and the discussion of whether we're going to implement or withdraw the tax on home heating fuel. I just wanted to say, I think to accurately know where you're going, you got to know where you are. I think we need to have that. I thought that we were gonna be getting quarterly, maybe. But I just wanted to say, I'm voting for this. I support this. I want to get the savings for our constituents, but emphatically, I think we need to have a budget.
Just so everybody knows, I sent out some emails. There's two things here. We're talking about the 23 budget and the 22 budget.
Correct.
I was thinking some people wanted to know what was going on with the 23 budget, which we haven't even met with the department head yet. The 22 budget, certainly we can get something updated. I will ask Lynn and Mary Beth if they would be kindly enough to do that with me, and we can get it out to everybody. Is that okay, Lynn? Is that okay with everybody? At least we'll know where we are for this year.
Quite appreciated, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's amazing that we're in a million.
So-
Budget.
That would be pending that information. I would love to explore this further, but at this point today, as I sit in the seat, the same thing that I'm looking at this resolution, I can't support it without knowing the full entire picture. And that does pain me a little bit because I do have constituents in my district, because I'm a rural representative, have these needs. So, but I am fiscally responsible. I would like to see an entire picture. I'm gonna have to vote on tonight.
I do have a question about the resolution too, and just a suggestion. I'd be in favor of putting a time period of this, maybe, when the winter season ends, because it'd be very unpopular, because he said this is forever, right? So it'd be very unpopular that maybe we do have a shortfall after we see the year-to-date budget, and we say we go into 2023 and we're behind and we need that 4% back or 2% or 1%. It would be very unpopular to make a change. I think we should put a time frame on it so it's not indefinite. That's just suggestion. I don't know how to recommend that. But can I put that on the table that we can maybe after the winter season revisit this instead of having it out there forever?
Yeah, to do that, you have to make a motion to amend.
Can I make a motion to amend?
Wait a minute.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a matter of clarification on the ramifications. For the fuel tax, couple things. One, it goes in at the beginning of every quarter. So to be effective, it goes in September 1, then December 1, et cetera. We have to get it to the state if this passes or whatever. We have to get it to the state at least 30 days in advance for them to acknowledge it and for it to take effect. Secondly, with a fuel tax, you can't put a sunset on it.
Yeah.
What you need to do is, if those events take place, as you say, changing the budget, you have to do a separate motion at that time, a separate resolution that would go into effect for the beginning of the next quarter. So
Are you saying that your first statement that if we don't make the decision today, because we gotta get 30 days out, then that's why we gotta make the decision now today? Is that what you're saying?
yes. Yes.
In order
And-
for
and-
it.
I'm not trying to persuade you.
Oh, I know, I just clarification. And the other
The way
part of it
the
is,
calendar works.
no, I got it. You know,
Yeah.
the other part of your question was on the 31st. I mean, there's no sunset on this particular resolution. There could not be a sunset.
Correct. Under the state regulations, you can't sunset it in advance. You have to make you can take action, you can change it. It's not in cement. You can but you have to formally take action at a future date
Through another resolution, right?
through another resolution.
I know somebody else had their hand up. Was it Mark? Okay. Was it anybody else?
Did you want a roll call?
Yeah, I think we better have a roll call vote. This is again, Ledge 3. Okay, it's been discussed. Well, go ahead with the roll call.
Jim Vasile,
Yes.
Andy Dennison,
Yes.
Lydia Patty Ruffini,
Yes.
Chris Petrus,
Yes.
Eileen McDab Coleman.
No.
Bob Shay,
Yes.
Hans Petcher,
Yes.
Mark Strong,
Yes.
Heidi Nightingale,
No, with the explanation that I was unable to make a accurate vote due to lack of fiscal.
okay, Elaine Daly,
No.
Tricia Kerr,
No.
Christina Clarko,
It pains me, but no.
Michael Didio's excused, Brian Muldrow,
So conflicted.
don't have a box for that.
Can I abstain?
Sorry, play the Jeopardy music.
I'm gonna vote, I think I'm gonna vote yes, and, only because I hope we can figure this out, and I hope all the information is right. I don't know what else to.
And I'm going to vote yes with a little caveat, but I know that this can be changed. This is not in stone, as Rich said. We can
Pass.
change this if we have to, so I'm voting yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion, no. Adjourn.
Ledge 4.
Open, everybody. Andy, you spoke too soon. I'm sorry.
Ledge 4 appointments.
Ledge 4. Authorizing the appointments. Somebody move it?
I did.
Second?
I second it.
Aye.
Any discussion?
Aye.
Favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Thank you.
adjourn.
Aye.
Any discussion? Thank you, everyone.
That's why you probably had that.